I'll never forget that December night. The moment my car skidded on black ice, spinning like a discarded toy, I had a fleeting thought. Who do I have to call when this is over? The answer, painful as it was, came sooner than I expected. I'm Rachel, 32, living in Chicago. At work, I'm a real estate agent with a steady income. But in my family, I'm just the life raft, the bank that never says no, covering mom's meds, half of dad's mortgage, Aaron's grad school tuition, Michelle's car, and countless bailouts for Luke, my impulsive younger brother, when his credit card debts piled up. No one ever asked if I was okay, if I was tired. I told myself as long as they were happy, I could take the hit. Until that fateful night in Denver. After a 3-day client conference, I was packing my suitcase when Luke called, frantically begging for money to book a weekend cabin for the family. I knew his promises to pay me back never came true, but I opened my banking app and sent the money. That transfer left me short for a plane ticket, forcing me to drive back to Chicago instead of flying as planned. That night, I hit the road as Denver sank into bone-chilling cold. The highway stretched endlessly, coated in ice, my headlights casting a hazy glow. About 40 minutes from the state line, a semi-truck ahead swerved, jackknifing across the road. I slammed the brakes, yanking the wheel, tires screeching on ice. All I heard was metal crunching, glass shattering. Then my car flipped multiple times. The acrid smell of deployed airbags filled the air. My chest burned, my ears rang, and I tasted blood. In the dim light, I vaguely saw a paramedic wrenching the door open, cutting my seatbelt, shouting, "Hang on, we're here!" I weakly asked about the truck driver, then blacked out. When I woke, I was in the hospital, chest bandaged, IV in my arm. The nurse said I was lucky, only a few broken ribs, but alive. She mentioned the paramedics had called all my emergency contacts, leaving messages. Hope flickered in me. Surely someone from my family would come. I closed my eyes, waiting for footsteps, a familiar hand. A sweetie, mom's here, or, sis, it's me. But all day, no one showed. My phone, down to a few percent, had no missed calls, no texts checking on me. The next morning, before it died, I scrolled Instagram and saw Luke's post. A photo of the whole family in the SUV, dad driving, mom in the passenger seat, Aaron and Michelle grinning in the back. Luke holding an energy drink, captioned, "Road trip with the real crew." I read it over and over, hoping I'd misread, but no. The photo was posted less than an hour after my accident. They knew and they still packed up, drove off, and posed happily like I didn't exist. My heart clenched. The physical pain was nothing compared to the ache in my chest. I tried not to cry, but in my head I heard a snap, like a rope stretched to its limit, breaking. Alone in that sterile white room, I wondered, if I died, would they have come to my funeral? Or would they have said the trip had to go on because it was already paid for? That was the moment I realized the crash wasn't just on the highway, it was in my family. And for the first time I thought, it's time for me to change. If you've ever felt abandoned or used by the ones you love most, drop a comment below and share with me. I used to think silence was the most comforting thing in life. But during those 4 days alone in that stark hospital room, I learned silence can cut like a knife, slicing into your heart. It wasn't the calm of peace. It was the absence of love. The first day, I held on to hope. I stared at the door, expecting a knock, the hurried steps of mom, dad's worried eyes, or Luke's awkward grin. I told myself they were probably on their way. Maybe the signal was bad in the mountains, maybe they hadn't heard. But when the clock marked 24 hours since the crash and no one came, I knew my hope was futile. On the second morning, my phone pinged with a message. My heart raced. But when I opened it, I froze. A Venmo request for $3,100 with a note, "Cabin weekend, everyone's chipping in," followed by 41 missed calls. Not one asked if I was alive or dead. No, "You okay, sis?" Or, "Do you need anything?" Just money, always money. I dropped the phone, staring at the ceiling, my chest tight. I started replaying my life like a slow-motion film. The years I paid for mom's meds, hundreds a month, never late. The times Dad complained about his mortgage burden, and I bit the bullet to transfer funds to keep his house. Aaron's grad school dreams. I co-signed his loans so he could study. Michelle needed a new car. I agreed to finance it. And Luke, who could never hold on to money, I bailed out his credit card debt for 19 months. I thought it was duty, love, the sacrifice of an eldest sister. But lying in that hospital bed with broken ribs, I realized it had only turned me into a walking wallet. On the third afternoon, I grabbed the pen and paper the nurse left for patients and made 2 lists. On the left, I wrote every monthly expense: mom's meds, half of Dad's mortgage, Aaron's tuition, Michelle's car payments, Luke's credit card debt, plus Netflix, electric, water, and internet accounts in my name. Total, nearly $2,800 a month, almost half my income. I stared at the number, like seeing blood seep from my heart all those years. On the right, I listed those who'd actually reached out after the crash. Just 3 names. Grandma, who called every night to check on me, Uncle Keith, offering to drive across state lines if I needed him, and Brian, a coworker I barely spoke to, who texted, "Need food? I'll order, no need to talk." 3 people outside my inner family circle were the only ones who made me feel cared for. The list showed a brutal disparity, dozens of expenses versus 3 names. I let out a bitter laugh. All those years, I'd convinced myself sacrifice was love. But what kind of love leaves you in a hospital to go party at a cabin? That third night, I couldn't sleep. The pain in my ribs made breathing hard, but the real pain came from the thought, if I were gone, what would they remember? A daughter, a sister, or just a cut-off cash flow? That question made me cry in the dark. On the 4th morning, as the nurse changed my bandages, I made a decision. I wouldn't live like this anymore. Once discharged, I'd cancel all automatic payments, cut off every service in my name, stop all the temporary payments that had dragged on endlessly. No announcements, no arguments, no explanations. Just shutting off the faucet that had been open for over a decade. I remember crossing out each item on the list, a lightness creeping into my chest. For the first time in years, I was taking back control of my life. And strangely, as I looked out the hospital window at the early winter sun, I didn't feel alone anymore. I felt protected by myself. But I knew this decision wouldn't be easy. I could imagine the yelling, the accusations, the barrage of calls when they realized the money had stopped. But compared to those 4 days of silence, those noises weren't scary anymore. Because silence had given me a clear answer. My family didn't need me. They needed what I provided. When the nurse asked if I wanted to call family, I smiled and shook my head. No need, I've got my own plan now. That was the day I decided to end the one-way cycle of sacrifice. From here, my story wasn't about enduring anymore. It was about standing up and reclaiming my worth. If you've ever felt you're only remembered when someone needs something from you, you'll understand how pivotal this moment was. To find out what happened when I started cutting those ties, wait for the next chapter. If this story gripped you, comment why. If not, be honest and comment N. I want to know, will you stick with me to the end of this journey? Have you ever imagined coming home from the hospital after a near-fatal accident, still bruised and battered, only to find your family's first messages aren't concern, but demands for money? I lived that, and it felt like a second punch, harder than the car flipping on the highway. The first day back, I hadn't even fixed my pillows or adjusted to the pain of breathing with broken ribs when my phone lit up. A text from Luke. "Yo sis, can you spot me $150 till Friday? Kinda stuck, haha." A laughing emoji, like it was a joke. My hands shook. He knew I'd been in the hospital. He knew I'd nearly died, and all he could think about was $150. I didn't reply. An hour later, he texted again. "Okay, seriously, what's with the silent treatment? Did I do something wrong? Just say it." I set the phone down. Part of me still hoped he'd text, "You okay, sis? I was worried." But no, it was just about money and annoyance at being ignored. The second day, I opened my email to a long message from Aaron, written in an almost formal tone. Rachel, I know you've been busy and things are stressful, but can you reinstate my grad school tuition payments? Just temporarily. If they stop now, I'll have to defer next semester. You know how much education means. I read it over, feeling both bitter and amused. Education's value? What about my value? The person who just cheated death. Did anyone in my family ever consider that? On the third day, Michelle sent a screenshot, a past due notice from her car loan company. Below it, a curt message. Sis, must be a system error. I thought payments were auto-drafted. If not, they'll repo my car. Help me out. My heart went cold. I remembered taking Michelle to sign for that car, her beaming about how it would kickstart her adult life. But what kind of adult life means letting your sister carry your debt and acting like it's a given? That evening, I had a voicemail from Dad, his voice gruff and irritated. Rachel, if you've changed your mind, at least have the guts to say it. Don't just go silent and cut everything off. That's not how adults behave. I sat motionless, listening to each word. He called my stopping the payments cowardly. But what was it when they left me in the hospital? I heard no remorse, just anger that their familiar cash flow was gone. Mom's text came last, short and sharp. Are you punishing the family? Why would you do this to us? I gave a hollow laugh. Punishing? If stopping being their mobile ATM was punishment, what was their abandonment in the hospital? Betrayal? Or a spiritual death sentence for a daughter, a sister, a granddaughter? That first week home, the texts, emails, and calls came like a storm. Not one said, Rachel, you okay? Or, sis, need anything? Just demands, accusations, pressure? And when I thought I'd grown numb to the shocks, a cousin sent me a video saying, you need to see this to know what they think. I opened it. The footage was shaky, probably filmed in the car on their way to the cabin. Luke held the phone, smirking. In the back, Aaron said casually, well, she's in the hospital. What are we supposed to do, sit there and cry? Laughter erupted. The whole car roared, like it was the funniest joke ever. The video ended with blaring music, no one mentioning me again. I dropped the phone, my heart squeezed. I'd told myself they were busy, maybe unsure how to handle it. But that video erased all excuses. They weren't busy or unsure, they mocked me. They saw my accident as a punchline, a reason to party without a care. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the yellow lamplight highlighting the bruises on my face. I looked in the mirror and saw not the old Rachel, the one who made excuses for her family, but a woman awakened, hurt but resolute. If you want to hear more stories and struggles like mine and feel a connection, check out my previous videos on this channel. Do you know the feeling of going from a dismissed shadow to holding the power of life and death? It's bitter, empowering, and made me realize how I'd buried my own worth for years. The second week after leaving the hospital, still aching, I started a new game. This time, I held all the cards. The family construction company was never really run by my parents. They met clients, signed contracts, acted like they carried the weight. But the unseen work, accounting, permits, legal filings, contract management, was all me. 5 years ago, when Dad couldn't secure a personal loan due to bad credit, I was the only one who could sign with the bank. To finalize it, the company's legal ownership was transferred to me. They thought it was just a formality, that I was holding it for convenience. They didn't know that document was the key to their fate. I remember the day I signed, Dad patting my shoulder, saying, "You're just the name on paper, we still call the shots." I nodded, never thinking I'd use it. But after the accident, after those silent hospital days, I realized, if they saw me as just a wallet, it was time to stop being one. I started by logging into the company's financial system. With a few clicks, I froze all automatic spending accounts and halted payments to vendors. Then I revoked Dad's and Luke's access. They'd always called themselves the operators. I changed passwords, set up two-factor authentication, and left a brief system note. Accounts under review. All payments paused until further notice. The next day, I emailed all vendors and suppliers, from electricians to drywall crews to cabinet shops. I introduced myself by my legal title, owner and CEO. I wrote, all transactions, payments, and contracts will now go through me directly. Please contact this address. No mention of family, no explanations. I acted like the true owner. The response came faster than I expected. A vendor called, his tone half surprised, half relieved. I knew it. Things ran smoothly because of you. We just played along with your dad to keep things civil. Now it's clear. I went quiet for a moment. So it wasn't just me who saw I was the backbone. Partners did too. They were just waiting for me to step up. Meanwhile, my family panicked. That afternoon, Dad called 8 times, leaving a furious voicemail. Rachel, what game are you playing? The company accounts are locked, clients are calling non-stop. You have no right. I listened and gave a bitter smile. No right? On paper, it was all mine. Mom texted, pleading, Sweetie, if you're mad, talk to me. Don't let the company collapse. It's our livelihood. I stared at her words, remembering the hospital morning when she accused me of punishing the family. Now she saw who held their lifeline. Luke's text was blunt. Don't think you're hot stuff. You're ruining everything. Everyone will see you're wrong. I smirked. A guy who couldn't hold a job for 3 months dared to judge me, the one who'd kept the company alive for years. That night, I reviewed contracts. I found payments to Luke's and Aaron's friends at double the rates. I saw absurd invoices Dad signed, likely to cover personal debts. I realized without me, the company would have died long ago. And because I'd been patching every hole, they thought they could keep living large without consequences. 2 days later, Mom and Dad showed up at my Chicago office. Mom teared up. Don't do this, Rachel. We need this company. Think of the family. Dad growled. If you don't restore access, I'll sue. I looked into his eyes, voice calm. Sue who? I'm the legal owner. I'm not taking anything. I'm protecting what's mine. The room fell silent. I'd never seen Dad so powerless. The days after, my phone didn't stop ringing. Clients, vendors, employees, all called me, not Dad. They saw who was really in charge, and I realized I'd been living in my own shadow all these years. That evening, I sat in my small apartment, looking out at Chicago's glowing skyline. A strange strength surged in me. For the first time, I wasn't the invisible life raft carrying everything. I was the driver, and my family had to face that truth. But deep down, I knew this was just the start. Power comes with responsibility, and cutting off their lifeline would bring fiercer reactions. I didn't know what lay ahead, only that I wouldn't back down. Because after tasting the loneliness of that hospital, I knew nothing hurts more than betrayal, and nothing sweeter than finally taking control. They thought I was just a shadow in the background, not anymore. They say justice sometimes comes not from courtrooms, but from life itself. And I saw it firsthand when news about Luke reached me, like a knife cutting back into my heart, both painful and forcing me to make the hardest decision yet. About a month after my accident, as the company settled into my new control, I got a late-night call from Mom. The phone rang relentlessly, her voice breaking when I answered. Rachel, Luke, he's been in an accident at the warehouse. They say broken bones need surgery now, but insurance won't cover it, the costs are too high. Sweetie, we can't manage. Can you? I gripped the phone, heart pounding. Memories flooded back. 4 days of hospital silence, 41 missed calls. Not about me, but money, the video of them laughing while I lay still. It burned in my mind. I cut her off, I can't, and hung up. In the dark, I sat motionless. My rational side screamed this was karma, that Luke was tasting the bitterness I'd endured. But my heart wasn't at peace. I saw his face, the little boy running in our backyard, laughing as I pushed his swing. I couldn't fully erase that, despite the dust of selfishness and carelessness covering it now. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Luke on a hospital bed, like me a month ago. The only difference, I'd had a chance to be saved, but he faced losing his. The next morning, I quietly contacted the hospital where Luke was. I told the billing department I'd cover all surgery and treatment costs for Luke Anderson, but to keep my identity anonymous, listed as an anonymous donor. Signing the payment authorization, my hand shook with relief and bitterness. I wasn't doing it for family or for Luke's gratitude. I did it because part of my heart couldn't go fully cold. 3 days later, a call came from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, then heard a weak, familiar voice. Sis, it's you, isn't it? I stayed silent. Luke gasped through the phone. I know it's you. Someone at the hospital slipped, said the money came from someone with our last name. No one else but you. Why did you do it after everything we put you through? I swallowed tears, keeping my voice steady. I don't want anyone in this family stuck in a hospital without care. But don't get it wrong, Luke. This doesn't mean things go back to how they were. You have to stand on your own. On the other end, I heard sobs. I froze. For the first time in my life, I heard Luke cry. Real tears. Not the voice begging for money, not the mocking laugh, but the cry of a brother facing harsh truth. You loved us more than yourself, he said. I'm sorry, Ra, for not seeing it sooner. I cried too. Years of carrying them, waiting for acknowledgement, and it came in this moment, when Luke, who'd mocked me, faced his own fragility. After that call, I sat still for hours. I didn't feel triumphant or vindicated, just relieved, like a long-held knot had loosened. I knew his apology didn't erase past hurts, but it cracked open a sliver of light. That change might be possible. The next day, Mom called again, her voice softer. Rachel, I know you helped him. I don't know what to say, but thank you. Maybe I was wrong, so wrong. Please give us another chance. I didn't answer right away. I said softly, Mom, chances don't come from me. They come from your change. If you really want it, start by taking responsibility for your lives. Hanging up, I felt an odd calm. I'd been compassionate but with boundaries. I wasn't their life raft anymore. I'd opened a small door. They had to walk through it. That night, I stood on my balcony, looking at Chicago's lit streets. I thought maybe I hadn't fully lost my family, just learned to redefine it, separating real love from exploitation dressed as love. But I knew Luke's crisis was just the start. More challenges, more struggles lay ahead, and I wasn't sure my heart was strong enough for them all. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. If they want to change, let time prove it. For now, it's time to move forward, for me. They say after a storm comes a rainbow, but few mention that sometimes, after the storm, all that's left is rubble, and in that rubble you must build a true home for yourself. Months after the accident, I saw that picture clearly, both ruin and rebirth. My family, used to living off the life raft named Rachel, began to falter. Luke, after his warehouse accident, kept a grueling night shift job with meager pay. Michelle, unable to make car payments, sold her new car and moved back with our parents. Aaron, full of grad school dreams, had to pause without financial support. The family construction company shrank, leaner, no longer flashy. My life, though, steadied. I restructured the company, keeping only loyal workers, those who toiled without demanding privilege. We were small but solid, with fewer contracts but quality ones, income steady and transparent. Most importantly, I lived in peace, free from the burden of carrying a family. One weekend afternoon, Mom knocked on my apartment door. She stood there, holding a bag of groceries, eyes hesitant. I opened the door, seeing a familiar figure, thinner, hair grayer, hands trembling. She set the bag on the table, saying softly, I'm not here to ask for anything. I just want to know, are you done with us forever? I looked into her eyes, not angry, not accusing. I answered, slow but firm, I've already left, you just didn't see it. Mom froze. She didn't cry or beg, just nodded, as if my words had long been in her heart. Watching her leave, I felt a mix of emotions, sadness for a broken mother-daughter bond, relief for finally saying what I'd held inside. Days later, I got a letter from Grandma. Her shaky but neat handwriting came with a check for $300, the exact amount the family demanded for their cabin trip. A short note. You don't owe them. Keep room for peace in your heart. I cried. Not for the money, but its meaning. Grandma was the only one who always saw, always understood me. That check was like a verdict. I owed my family nothing, materially or emotionally. I didn't cash it. I tucked it in a notebook, a reminder that true love needs no conditions. After everything, I gave myself a gift. I booked a flight to Oregon. a place I'd dreamed of but never had time for. I rented a small cabin among pines, where morning fog blanketed the paths and evenings whispered with wind through leaves. That week, I lived differently. No phone, no work emails, no demanding texts. I woke early, brewed hot coffee, sat on the porch watching sunlight pierce the trees. I walked the forest, breathing pine sap, hearing birds call. I sat by the fire, writing journal pages I'd long neglected. For the first time in years, my mind was empty but calm. No guilt, no anger. I realized peace doesn't come from family changing or the past being fixed. It comes from setting boundaries, offering selective compassion, and daring to live for yourself. I no longer hoped for a family apology or recognition. I was grateful for reaching the end of pain and finding serenity. On my last night in Oregon, I sat outside the cabin, staring at a star-filled sky. I wondered, if my family truly wanted to change someday, would I open the door? I didn't have an answer, but I knew I wouldn't open it for them to trample again. If I did, it would be on terms of respect and true love. When my plane landed back in Chicago, I felt light. Challenges lay ahead, but I wasn't the old Rachel, the sister, daughter who only sacrificed. I was a new Rachel, knowing her worth, loving maturely, and understanding that sometimes leaving is how you keep what's best. After all I'd been through, I learned the greatest strength isn't in how much you carry for others, but in setting boundaries to protect yourself. Family can be a place of love, but also exhaustion if love flows one way. I learned forgiveness doesn't mean letting yourself be used. It's choosing to help when truly needed, and stepping back when silence is the right answer. Peace doesn't come from others changing to please you, but from your courage to live for yourself, break old cycles, and step into a new journey. If you felt like me, tied by expectations, forced to sacrifice endlessly, remember you can choose a different life. Thank you for hearing my story. If its human values touched your heart, hit like, leave a comment, and follow my channel for more journeys together.